Hello everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer, voice recorder of videos, and a tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to Crafting Dragonlance, where I build, write, and prepare for our next session of Dragonlance, Shadow of the Dragon Queen, which I'm currently running for platinum level patrons of patreon.com/RogueWatson. This is the crafting episode for session number 19 of our campaign. If you are a platinum level patron playing in this campaign, you are in the wrong place, because this is not meant for you. It'll be full of spoilers. For our campaign, we use Roll20. For streaming, I use OBS Studio. You can support this channel by going to patreon.com/RogueWatson and by shopping for your tabletop games, CCGs, miniatures, RPG supplies, and more. Our sponsor, Noble Knight Games, using my affiliate link. So we are coming off a gigundo, mega crazy session where the Camp Carrion Clay location in Chapter 5 of Dragonlance ended up being just enormously epic, taking 2 sessions, including it just ended up being a giant fight, I guess, in there. And of course, we had an extra big session where I didn't want to exclude anybody who was in the middle of that fight due to our unique, player rotations that we do. So it ended up being an 8-person party for a huge epic showdown, which means I went ahead and told everybody they could level up. Even though that's technically a session early, they're supposed to level up when they get to the end of this chapter, which will occur during this upcoming session. But, how can you not have them level up after such a huge, crazy, epic battle? It just felt appropriate, which has me slightly concerned about this coming situation, because I feel like in some ways this was supposed to be kind of the big culmination of the entire chapter, I guess. And I feel like we just kind of already experienced that, so there may not be quite as exciting here. Basically, they're finally reaching the location of why they need the Kalamon army, which is they're gonna find the full-ass dragon army, which, they did defeat a nice little force there, but that's not like hundreds of units. That was just 2 dozen or something. And they're gonna see ahead in this upcoming situation, which is it's labeled City of Lost Names. I need to not name the actual episode that, because the entire next chapter is actually the City of Lost Names, which I'm going to try not to also call multiple sessions the City of Lost Names, literally. In fact, I think the first area is a little bit of a dungeon crawl, and then after that they get to the proper Lost City. And you all know how much I love a Lost City in my D&D campaigns. One of my favorite tropes, I guess, or tools, frameworks for just fun adventuring, dungeon crawling, and all that. So I'm really looking forward to that. But we have one more scenario to go, which is the attack on Wind's End, which is basically we're just trying to get into the city, but the city is currently surrounded, and basically the dragon army is already here, which I always like. Also, that concept of the party having to just constantly chase after the villains who are always kind of one step ahead of them, and kind of catching up, versus the party maybe sort of able to thwart them at some points, but other times not, and they're just supposed to catch up and try to do what they can. So in this coming session, the party will make it from Camp Carrying Clay back to the army, where they can receive their long rest and their level up, and then from there they'll probably just go ahead and march with their. In fact, I'll have it mentions that they can get information by interrogating captured soldiers or slipping into the camp. I'm actually going to fast track all that by having the Kalamon army already have done a lot of the scouting work, because we can reuse like Cudgel and Jaev and these characters who are basically, or at least Jaev is especially a scout, even though they don't necessarily know the area, but like the army should be competent in that way, where it's like, no, we already went ahead and sent out scouts. We're going to come back and we're just going to give you that information, and then we can proceed from there. Also, we'll have to do some, RP falling action from the camp, and Becklin's reuniting with the, other NPCs will be kind of cool. I'm sure the party's going to want to loot the camp, which unfortunately, Dragonlance is not very big on loot. It's a pretty low magic world, all things considered, which certainly helps balance things a little bit better for me, the DM, and makes things a lot more challenging for the party, I think. In fact, the only loot in this whole camp that I can see, which is crazy because it's a whole camp of enemies, is literally just this little bit of treasure in the desk of the Hobgoblin Warlord. which is different than the chest. The chest contained the egg, and that's what the dragon flew off with. But the desk holds 2 potions of greater healing and a pouch containing 300 gold pieces. That feels very, very low, but I might up at least the money, even though the money doesn't really matter that much. Also, I always have to think about the fact that I have more players than the average campaign, even though I usually limit it to only a certain amount of players, but I also feel like I need to scale up the rewards for that reason. So like if I give out 2 potions of greater healing, that could go to people that aren't going to be in like 2 or 3 sessions for the rest of the campaign. Like, how does that work out with the balance? So I may increase that a little bit, or at least maybe they find like a cache of potions or something would be a pretty nice reward for them. But it's still trying to keep it like low magic generally, and there's just not a lot of rewards to be have here, unfortunately. Hey, Tom. So not much there. They'll meet up with Darrett's army, well, it is Darrett's army, I guess, the Kalaman army. And I mentioned that they will already get some scouting information. This location confused me at first because the city, I guess, is located inside of the plateau. Or just for some reason it's like impassable except to get through this one canyon. So it's a nice little defensible area, I suppose. A broad canyon splits the plateau's face. Passage blocked by an aged stone wall. There's red tents everywhere with the dragon army. Find the canyon leading to the City of Lost Names, blocked by Dragon Army troops. It's an overwhelming threat. It even says, like, they can't... There's no way to really get over there. Dragon riders prevent any attempts to fly over. Mages see through magical means of infiltration. They kind of want you to linearly decide, hey, you brought a giant army, and this is what that giant army is for. It's for basically attacking the Kalaman army, and through that war... By pulling out all the soldiers, the party is then able to slip inside. There's only one encounter map, so they're supposed to slip inside to a very specific area. And it says the canyon is blocked by a simple stone fortification, a remnant of a long-vanished people. The walls surrounding the ruined city are riddled with passages. One leads from the city to Wind's End, a landing point for Dragon Army Dragonels, and Wind's End is the character's best chance to access the City of Lost Names. I don't know how they're supposed to know that, because if you go to the Wind's End map, that passage is pretty fucking blocked. So are you telling me that the scouts were able to see that passage and then say, like, yeah, I think this is our best way in? So I'm going to try to work with that as best I can, because obviously I want to use this map. I don't want to change that part of it. So either they did find the passage, or they can just say, hey, this is... I'm trying to visualize this. It's a canyon, and I guess there's just different outposts throughout this canyon that are blocked, but that means there's multiple tunnels that lead into the city, because the way that the party ends up going, it makes no sense if this is a trafficked area. Like, they're basically going through here for the first time, springing all these traps and encounter. So clearly this is, I believe, a tunnel that even the Dragon Army never found or knows about, which is also kind of weird because their stables are like right fucking here. I think, if I look back and see the location of it, I think that's the idea. So I'll try to play around with that as best I can and say, like, okay, Cudgel and Jayev, I guess they scouted the canyon. They know there's an overwhelming force here, and this particular outpost is like the least guarded and the smallest. And that would be the best place to start, maybe, to look for a route inside. But regardless, to even get to this location in this canyon is going to require the entire Kalaman army basically assaulting the Dragon army. Even though they're not going to really be able to win this fight. I believe it even says that the Dragon army outnumbers them. See if I can see that. Nope, not there. What does it say? Darrett will attack the Dragon army, giving the characters the distraction they need. Darrett believes such an attack is their best strategy. He recognizes it'll come at a cost to Kalaman's forces, but he doesn't see another choice that will allow the characters to strike a decisive blow. Because I believe... Yeah, the Dragon Army forces outnumber Kalaman's, but Kalaman has the element of surprise. And I believe it works out well for them at first, but then reinforcements from within the city even spew out of the canyon. So it like pulls out a lot of the canyon area, and that's what allows the party to then kind of move in and sneak through. And then they're only dealing with a pretty light amount of forces, which I think I'm okay with because I don't know how often they'll actually even be able to long rest once they get to the city itself. Maybe when they get to the end of the Path of Memories, they might actually be able to long rest there. I'm not sure about that. I'd have to re-look at that one because I think that's when they do the old elf with the test of high magic sorcery stuff. So that may be considered a safe place. They might be able to long rest there because they're probably going to need one. And before we do this Gigundo area, which is going to be just basically several encounters until they make it to the Bastion of Takesis. So we'll have to encourage the party to do that because that's the only map that I've got. Hopefully they're on board with that, although I could certainly allow them to use whatever spells and skills available to help Darrett's army and forces. Darrett will certainly want to have a big fight. He knows it's going to cost them dearly, and ultimately he's going to probably try to retreat from that fight as best he can. But it's really going to be the two sides are going to have to say good luck to each other. Like, in terms of, hey, this might be our last hurrah, but hopefully this is worth it for you all. This is Darrett basically speaking, that this sacrifice potentially is worth getting all of you inside this area and stopping whatever is going on here. So it should be a pretty dramatic speech by Darrett to the party, and a lot of emotional beats because I believe we don't see any more of the Kalamon stuff throughout the entire next chapter. And then we do get to return for the final chapter. So it feels like we're going into the final chapter, but we're actually not quite there yet because we've got the Lost City, and then we've got the final situation, which is the flying citadel and all that good stuff. This does use the fray thing, which I kind of like. We haven't seen this map in a while, have we? Gosh, it's been since like... Have we even used one since Vogler? Because I feel like there was one other one that I ended up skipping in Chapter 4. Yeah, because I didn't use the Battle of Steel Springs at all. So that was the one in Chapter 4. So we haven't been... Since the end of Vogler, the Invasion of Vogler event, which was forever ago. Like, near the beginning of the game. That's when we last saw that. And we're using it again here, which is cool. Like, it feels more wartime and battle-y, I think, which is basically different events happening because the players are kind of moving through here in the middle of a battle. So I don't want this to be hugely challenging necessarily, but I do think there should be some challenge. I need to replace these tokens now that I look at them. Let's get our soldiers back in there. That's that guy. But we may change a few things. Let's embiggen you. So as written, when they make it to this location, it's just throwing me off that it's called City of Lost Names. There are 3 Dragon Army officers and a Dragonel in a pen. While the Dragonel's alert, the officers are distracted by the Kalman forces and are surprised when the characters attack. I would still probably require some kind of stealth check or something. And then there's a battlefield events table that happens at the end of each round, which is fun and kind of represents the ongoing battle around them. It's a D10 table, 1 to 4 chance of just an extra officer firing somebody from overhead. A 5 to 7 chance that a Dragonel strafes the battlefield. This one's not that exciting, though. It's just heavily obscured. I guess that does matter. The entire battlefield is heavily obscured. But that's weird, because if you're attacking each other, you're like all blinded. So I might actually change that to be like a certain area has to make strength saves that are knocked prone. Maybe it could be more interesting. Because being knocked prone and then having other enemies go, if you go next, doesn't really matter. But if you don't, then that could be pretty nasty. On an 8 and 9, 2 Dragonel Army soldiers arrive and spawns in new units. And then on a 10, a dead Dragonel falls from the sky, crashing in a 10-foot area centered on a random player who isn't in the pens. Each character has to make a DC 14 dex save, taking 6d10 bludgeoning damage and knocked prone if they fail. Wow. Although if all characters in the pens, reroll on this table. So that's kind of cool. So right now it's 3 officers, which is kind of a lot, because these guys are pretty sturdy. We did fight multiple officers in the last camp carrying clay also. I guess the assault orders would work on each other, wouldn't they? Yeah, because they have Draconic Devotion. Also, their Draconic Devotion would probably be going off constantly. Because they can constantly probably see dragons around them, so that's also interesting. I don't know if I want to use 3 officers, though. I might actually replace, like, one of the officers with 2 soldiers. Might be... Why is Derek here? Might be more interesting. Derek, go away. And then surely we can at least have 1 guy flying overhead, right? That seems like something that should happen. Throw another dragon out. I mean, in fact, maybe that's what I'll do. I'll have this guy. Maybe he'll get added in the 2nd round or something. Have him be flying around overhead. It's not a very big map either. This is only a 5-foot grid map, and I'm not sure even where to put the party. There's like literally, it's like an airfield. There's a landing strip right here. I'm trying to think which direction the party would be coming from and which. So the canyon wall is here. So if we assume the canyon, I guess we don't know where the canyon is exactly. We could say that the canyon entrance, I guess, could be anywhere. Okay, it looks like it's actually there on the south. So if that's the case, then they're probably coming from the south. So we can just spawn them down here, I guess. Maybe near the fray. That way they have to tussle with these guys for a little bit. Well, so that does mean the enemies will be kind of facing that direction, though, because there's no other way for the PCs to come in here. And we're going to go... So we're already going to scale things up just a little bit. So I'm going to basically add 1 officer flying overhead. Probably come in later, though. And then we've got these guys. We're placed the one on the ground with 2 soldiers. Come back to the token layer, my friend. Okay. In fact, I might put one of the officers back there. There we go. We'll just have that be one of the Dragonels in there. Maybe he's even thinking of like suiting up or something, and then the party arrives. And then this guy will be possibly flying overhead just to add some fun complications. Yeah, and I think this might be the last time we end up using the fray concept. Unless there's one on this, let's see. Battle of Calamon actually has one. So there is one more. Okay. Should be fun, I guess. I mean, there's not much going on here. It's the complicated thing will be once they organize things with Darrett's army, which again is supposed to kind of play out in a certain way. And Forts is kind of awkward because I don't know if the players are going to have some other ideas, but the way it's set up and the way I'm going to present it to them is it's a pretty linear entrance that they have to make it in. There's really no way of stealthing in, and that's something I can even mention. It's like, hey, they've got magic, they've got all these things. The best way to do this, and the least risky actually, to get the party in is to distract and pull this army out with our own army, and then you guys get in, and then this is what they recommend as being the best place to stop in first and try to look for an entrance, I believe. Element is the element of surprise. Although they are aware that the party's been doing things for this long, I would expect. But technically, I guess the Dragon Army hasn't come across the entire Calamon army yet. Yeah, it comes at a cost to Calamon's forces. Obviously, we're not using the mass combat thing. Darrett launches the attack on the Dragon Army the characters choose. As chaos unfolds, much of the Dragon Army soldiers stationed at Wind's End rush their Dragonel mounts into the air, leaving the outpost vulnerable. Yeah. That's why it looks empty. This is after a lot of them take off and are circling around, doing the attack. In fact, that can be one thing that if the party ends up, because I would still expect them to stealth. So maybe if they fail that stealth check, obviously you can still let them come up here, but maybe that will draw the attention of this one rider. Looks like passive perception of 14 is the highest, so any kind of stealth check. And I kind of like doing the new, I think it's the 2024 rules where it says like everybody actually has to succeed on this stealth check. Like one person could give it away, which is realistic. So everybody would have to make a 14 or higher on the stealth check in order to avoid aggroing this dude flying overhead, which would certainly make things a lot more challenging for them. Battlefield with the following features. There's crates, there's pens, ceilings are 15 feet high. And then there's just an area around the map that represents the fray. I don't think that this one has from which danger might appear. So unlike the other ones, this one I don't think has anything bad happen if you enter the fray, though. Because I don't think there's supposed to be combat happening here necessarily. In fact, I think the only thing that matters about the fray is this part of it, which is that the two soldiers arrive appearing in spaces adjacent to the fray near a random player character. Otherwise, I don't think the fray itself actually matters. So we'll probably start them down here. And then at the initiative count 0, we do one of those events. But I think I'm going to replace one of those. I like my idea of like kind of the equivalent of a gust of wind spell instead of just heavily obscured. Just because making the entire battlefield heavily obscured mechanically isn't actually that interesting. I think, if I remember what heavily obscured does, which is give everybody the blinded condition. Unless I have enemies that have blindsight or something, or player characters did. Which I can't remember if they do or not. All right, what's this one called? Winds End Battlefield Events. There it is. All right, so let's look up the Gust of Wind spell. A DM hack is always look at spells to see if I can just get the appropriate rules for something I'm thinking of. I probably wouldn't do a 60 feet long one. How fast can those Dragonlance move? Because if it does a strafing flyby, yeah, they can only move 60 feet in general. So I don't think they would be going 60 feet along the ground. So let's shorten that to a 30-foot section. So let's make it gust of wind, but 30 feet. Blast in a direction. Each creature in the line must succeed on a strength save or be pushed 15 feet away from 15 feet away. I would probably just change that to be prone. Just knocked prone rather than being pushed. What's a good strength save for a CR3 creature? That's something I don't recall. These guys don't have any saves on them, do they? Rats. What do we think? Like a DC 14? What's the equivalent of a... What's a wyvern? Yeah, it might be a higher CR, actually. Much higher. CR 6. Good lord. Also does not have saves. How about a wormling? Is that what I'm thinking of? What CR is a wormling? CR 4. Okay, that's pretty close. And they have a DC 13. All right. Let's work with that. Let's say DC 13. So we'll keep a Dragonel roars and strafes the battlefield. Where can I? All right. Backspace. Throwing up a. Let's see. Battlefield. Reach the battlefield in a. No, I was gonna say in a battlefield. Period. All creatures in a 30-foot by 10-foot line They're big. Succeed on a DC 13 strength saving throw or be knocked prone. That's simple. Just a one-time strength save knocked prone. Okay. That weight correct? 40, and then it'd be 30, 5, 6, 7. Yep, so that means this one's 20. Yep. And this one is 10. Yep. Okay. I can at least delete damage. 60, 10 bludgeoning damage. Oh, that one uses DC 14. Interesting. Delete this damage. So I like to roll my damage. Literally just them getting hitting their crossbow attacks. Almost tempted to do this twice around. These are just so fun. I love these battlefield things. I love using them in Call from the Deep also. I use these to great effect in Call from the Deep, and it really created a fun, like, dynamic situation. The only bummer is if we hit the soldiers one too often, and then it ends up spawning a lot of dudes. Although I could make it where it's just one. If I do it, if I want to run this table twice in one round, I could shorten the number of soldiers that arrive. Right now, it's a 40% chance of the only thing that happens is an extra officer tries to shoot somebody with a crossbow, which is still pretty nasty. Nah, I'll probably keep it. We're probably going to be here at least for 2 or 3 rounds. These officers alone have, gosh, 60-some hit points on average. The passage... Did I close that table? I did close that table. Where are you? City of Lost Names. What's it say about the passage? Features battlefield events. Passage. In a cargo stuffed alcove at the north end of the pens, several loose boards lean against the exposed cliff wall. The character with the highest passive perception score notices the gap behind those boards. The boards are easily moved, revealing a 5-foot wide, 8-foot high passage that winds into the cliff toward the City of Lost Names. So it's not clear if the dragon... To me, it doesn't make much sense for what's coming if the dragon army actually does use this passage. But if they don't, it doesn't make much sense that the party would necessarily know that there's a passage here either. So that's my kind of conundrum. Because what this passage doesn't lead to the Lost... I mean, it does, but it literally leads into this dungeon crawl first. This path of memories is the first thing they do. And then, once they exit that, that actually leads into the city. So we're actually transitioning from this into a dungeon crawl and then into a lost city. Hence why I'm thinking, like, there might need to be a long rest somewhere. Now, they just got a long... They're going to be going into this scenario with a long rest, because definitely they got one after the Camp Carrying Clay situation, for sure. Also, I'm not sure if we'll even... if we're going to make it in here or not. It kind of depends on how much role-playing the party wants to do following the events we just had, and how much role-playing they want to do... and kind of deliberation they want to do before this event, and then this battle could take, you know, the rest of the session, so that, which would be fine with that, because that's literally, this is the cap of chapter 5, and then once they enter the city, they basically exit this passage, then they've officially entered chapter 6, which is designed for level 8 and 9. I believe they level up to 9 at some point halfway. Does it say when it suggests doing it? Yeah, okay, to start the chapter at 8th level. They advance to 9th level during their exploration of the City of Lost Names, likely after reforging the Dragonlance, the Temple of Paladine. Yeah, it's probably a good spot. And then they'll level up again at the end of the chapter. Ooh, I do like that picture. That's cool. Gosh, is that what the Bastion looks like? That is crazy big compared to the rest of the city. Holy crap. Also, missed opportunity to show the multiple moons. We should at least be able to see 2 moons, right? As the characters leave Wind's End, they follow ancient tunnels through the cliffs surrounding the City of Lost Names. The tunnels eventually breach the ruined city's foundation and wind through substructures of the Eastern District. These tunnels and buried ruins are the path of memories, and they are far from abandoned. So it technically, I guess, does lead to the city, but they end up going through the city through like an underground, what do they call it? Subsection? Traveling for hundreds of feet, you pass a large seam in the wall. Rock's texture abruptly changes. Transition from natural stone of the local cliffs to the foundation stone of the City of Lost Names. But if you read about it, it just doesn't make sense that this is being trafficked by the dragon army, because like one of the first things that happens is spectral dragons come at the party, which is just a wisdom save, or it's like the Crown of Madness spell almost, I guess, that happens to them. And then a stone golem hides under shattered wood and attacks. I believe there's also skeletal. Yeah, dragon skeletons emerge from the walls. Is there a token for that? Oh, interesting. They use the Bone Naga token. That's not a bad idea. Can we really not use like a Dracolich or something? I feel like that's kind of a missed opportunity. Where is... Oh, wow, I didn't even see all the extra maps I've got. This is going to be awesome. From Tessa Presents Maps. Yeah, it's going to be so useful. Wow. All these, basically all the specific encounters that are mentioned. Oh, it's so good. Awesome. Okay. Excited about that. So Path of Memories. Yes, it just doesn't make any sense that the Dragon Army be using this thing, because there's just monsters everywhere popping out at them, right? And then the end of it has a an elf who's chilling back here and can help our mages actually complete their test of high sorcery, which is kind of spiff. So it only makes sense if this is just one of many myriad passages into the City of Lost Names that even the Dragon Army either haven't used yet, or perhaps they decided this place was too full of monsters and they just kind of backed off from it. But if they don't even know about it, it seems like it's not. I mean, there's just like, what did it say? There were boards that like blocked it off. Again, it seemed like it made much sense that they wouldn't know about this either. A cargo stuffed alcove. So clearly they put things in that alcove. Several loose boards lean against an exposed cliff wall. Notice there's a gap behind those boards. So maybe the Dragon Army put those, but it just doesn't say information, but I wish it did. But maybe the Dragon Army actually boarded this one up, thinking like, oh, there's too many monsters here. So to help it make sense for me, even though the players may not care, maybe I'll have them find a note that says path equals too dangerous or something, and have it be kind of boarded up with like a sign. And then that kind of helps explain the fact that like they did find this entrance, but they don't necessarily want to use it. They've found other ones. But it could be a fun tease for the party of be like, yeah, this does lead to the Lost City, but does have a lot of monsters and is not exactly a safe passage. But also don't want to have them be like, oh, well, let's get out of here and try to find another path, because I'll have like maybe the rest of the army is like now, still around. And in fact, once the party gets closer to this passage, maybe I'll have more soldiers kind of come up here to try to investigate this particular spot. I don't want them necessarily to be chased, but that's actually an interesting idea, is if I want to try to create, that's tough to do, almost a chase sequence where the party's goal is not to defeat all the enemies in this previous area, which is this one, but their goal is to just duck inside this passage and make it in there. The problem is, why would the enemies not chase them? And maybe it's just because they're also just afraid of the things in here. And they're probably going to end up having to take out most of these guys anyway, just to be able to get in that passage. But that is an interesting concept, and something might make things more exciting also. And it doesn't say if the Dragon Army has active dragons with them at the moment. I feel like that's a pretty big fucking deal. The party just saw their first ever real dragon. And now they're seeing the dragon army in all of its glory, at least like half the army or something, whatever it's supposed to be. And we just realized that there was a dragon like delivering an egg or whatever, and I don't know, would there be a dragon involved? Because that would certainly devastate Darrett's army quite a bit as well. But it doesn't mention that here, so there is the one main named dragon who the party has not actually encountered yet, although I've teased a little bit. Balefion, I believe. I believe is actually the boss of this chapter. So I think at the end of this chapter, they do get to fight a straight up adult blue dragon, I believe, in the Threshold of the Heavens battle. Not to look ahead too much. Where we at? Oh yeah, Loazette, who's a black mage. Starian drones, flame skulls, draconians, Loazette. Yeah, there he is, Balefion. Who does... I believe that's an adult black dragon? Or adult blue dragon. CR9. Doesn't have lair actions, though, which is a big deal. Because he's not in his lair. But that'll be cool. They'll be level 9 for that, I believe. And I believe the dragon doesn't have a lot of allies with him, but they still have to fight their way in there, because I think that's also I was like multiple little dungeon crawls. I'm very excited about Chapter 6. Chapter 6 will be awesome. I'm looking forward to it, especially because I already have all these maps baked in. Combine those 3 encounters into one action extravaganza to shorten things up and escalate the encounter. Which encounters are you talking about, Mad? Sorry, I just caught up to the chat. But yeah, I think I like the idea of trying to make it almost like a... rather than just a traditional fight, really emphasize the urgency of the situation of having the party needing to get into the City of Lost Names while this battle is still going on, and try to shorten their combat quite a bit. Try to just like mow through these guys, or maybe even try and go as stealthy as they can, which certainly, I mean, they can even split the party up and just have some, you know, stealthy folks do some stuff. Like whatever shenanigans they want to do, I'll work with them on that. While still, once they get within sight, I'm probably going to start rolling for those battlefield events table, like once we're really in initiative combat. But I did want to look ahead to the Path of Memories, just so I could be reminded of the fact that, like, oh yeah, it really doesn't make sense if the Dragon Army is regularly using this passage, and the fact that it's boarded up tells me that maybe they found it, but they literally said, like, no, this way is too dangerous, we're not going to go in here. But for the party, it's kind of the only way that they have in. At least that's the only one they give me from this adventure that I can see is going through this certain passage, which it seems like a cool little dungeon crawl. And again, I don't know if we'll actually step through here much. And I do like that the very first thing that you encounter is something that should scare the pants off of anybody coming in here, which is the dragon spirits haunting the area. Illusory manifestations that can't be attacked or damaged, and draconic. They accuse the characters of trespassing, call them desecrators and betrayers. That's very cool. So you can actually calm the spirit. Oh, I guess it's not just a trap thing. You can actually talk to him by assuring them in draconic of the party's innocent intentions. If the spirits aren't immediately calmed, each creature in the hall and the round. Can I almost feel like this is a good use of Phantasmal Killer, maybe? Is that the one I'm thinking of? An illusion that's so powerful it can hurt you, while still maybe giving the party a chance to say something. I wonder if a party would, even if I put them like in initiative order. No, I probably wouldn't do that because there's no fight here. This is more like a trap. Tap for the nightmares of a creature you can see within range and create an illusion of its deepest fears. Although in this case, it'd just be dragons. Character makes a wisdom save. On a failed save, the target takes 4d10 psychic damage and has disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls for the duration. Which that part probably wouldn't matter unless you're trying to influence these things to stop. If the spirits aren't immediately calmed, each creature in the hall in the round after the spirits manifest, succeed on a DC 16 wisdom save, or use its action to make a melee attack against a random creature within reach. Yeah, it's basically the Crown of Madness spell, which feels weird to be assaulted by dragons and have that be the result. So I might like Phantasmal Killer a little bit better, unless you all have some other ideas for some kind of pseudo-psychic, magic-based trap spell thing. While somehow giving the party a chance to calm the spirits, which is tricky, because I feel like if a trap is happening, the party just kind of expects me to give them the results of the trap and say, like, okay, make me a save, instead of just pausing. Because I don't want to necessarily say, like, oh, does anybody want to speak to the ghost dragons? Like, that feels too much of tipping my hand to what they're supposed to do here. Actually, you know what it reminds me a lot of is in the same campaign, there was a scene where there were ghostly horses like charging at the party in one of our first dungeon crawls. And it's a similar deal there, where the book says that the party has a chance to like calm the ghost horses, but instead, when we played it in the actual game, everybody scrambled out of the way and like no, we're not gonna try to calm these. We're just gonna try to like duck in cover and protect ourselves first. So I imagine this will be a similar situation where I don't think anybody would think to do anything other than survive against this onslaught, basically. But having it do actual nasty damage could be an effective means of why the Dragon Army was like, oh shit, no, we gotta get out of here. Because if it's 4d10, that is 20 to 25 damage. Like, that's real bad. Like, that basically kills the average soldier, I think. Just death from fright. So, if I use the Phantasmal Killer that I'm leaning towards, which I kinda am. And I like that it's right at the beginning, so that's also a means of why they got the hell out of there. M2 with a Stone Golem. Those, I believe, are deceptively nasty as well. In fact, might have gotten a glow up in the new edition. New Stone Golem. I think they just cast like the slow spell, don't they? Yeah, they do. As a bonus action, on a recharge of 5 to 6, they cast the slow spell. That's crazy. I wonder if it's only a single. Is it just the slow spell? Man, slow is so nasty. And they also got a ranged attack called Force Bolt with a +9 to hit for 40-10 force damage. Hot damn, that is crazy. Advantage on saves against magic. Oh my god. They also have 220 hit points. Holy crap at the Stone Golem. My goodness. CR10. What was the old one? Also a CR10. Okay. So the old one could do slow as an... Oh, I gotta sneeze. Ooh, I caught that one. Ugh. Okay, the old one had magic resistance and had the slow on a recharge, but the slow was its action, so it felt weird using it. Whereas now it's a bonus action, and they have a range attack, and they have more hit points, and one more AC. Damn. Show me the damn good stuff. So yeah, between the events outside and then this dungeon, I could see them probably needing another long rest. This is a pretty jam-packed dungeon of nastiness. I could see them probably trying to get another long rest. Maybe after they meet Demlin and before they actually go out in the Lost City. Given the creatures they have to fight in here. Order it to. Demlin created the golem in order to attack any creature that disturbs the ruined structure. Any creatures near the ruin have a passive perception score of 16 or higher. Notice the golem. God, so there's a chance of like surprising them. Oof. M3 is a flooded up passage. It leads directly to M6. Creatures medium size or larger attempt to swim through the tunnel have to squeeze through the rubble. Have to make an athletics check. Oof, if they fail by 5 or more, they get stuck, restrained, and risk drowning. That's creepy. Ugh, like all those horror stories of people getting stuck in like fucking caves. Oh my goodness. Although the drowning rules are actually, the suffocating rules, I should say, on in D&D are very lenient given how time works in like combat and dangerous situations. Stone Golem with range. Yeah, exactly. That was like its one weakness is it was just this lumbering like melee attacker, but they just gave it the ability to like, I don't know, shoot rays out of something. So now it just has force bolts that it can do twice around. Like, good lord. That is powerful. Also, the token looks really fucking cool. Wine cellar and M4. All right, that's now it's starting to look like this is an underground area of a city. It is collapsed, but they can find ancient wine bottles. Bone Gauntlet M5 is where they fight the dragon skeletons. Which I think is this just a creature introduced in Dragonlance? Let's see. Appendix. Nope, not sidekicks. Lord Soth, Lozette, Starring Drone, Dragon Army Officer, Dragonel, Draconians, Death Dragon. I'm not actually seeing a dragon skeleton. Where the fuck did they come up with this? Oh, it even if I just kept reading the fucking sentence there. These creatures each use the Bone Naga stat block, but without the spellcasting trait. Fascinating. That's why they use the tokens. Okay, that's interesting. So without the spellcasting. Well, the problem is the new Bone Naga. Let's see. That's an interesting way of doing a monster. Because then, yeah, the new Bone Naga has a serpentine gaze that's not a spellcasting thing. So you'd obviously have to get rid of that. Which you could. So you just reduce them to their bite attacks, I guess. Which is +5 to hit. Reach of 10 foot, 2d6 +3 piercing, plus 2d6 necrotic. Which actually looks like they got nerfed a little bit because it's 3d6. They went from 3d6 poison to 2d6 necrotic. Oh, but it got multi-attack, so it does it twice. That's actually much different. Okay. I guess that's not a bad way of doing an undead dragon skeleton, is using a Bone Naga without its traits. That certainly would lower its CR quite a bit. If you literally got rid of its spell, so it can't do basically lightning bolt once per day is like the one thing you would probably use. Well, command's cool too. And you'd get rid of its serpentine gaze, just give it its basic bites. Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with that. And you could use the token. Could be a draconic gaze. Yeah. I don't know. Wisdom save DC 13. One creature in the non can see within 60 feet takes 3d6 +3 psychic damage. The target is a charmed condition. I feel like that's pretty unique to it being like a snake, almost, the Jungle Book with Cod doing that little hypnotizing thing. That's kind of what I feel like. I don't think that's really a dragon thing necessarily. And if we're doing literally like mindless skeletons, I think I'd probably just get rid of its effects. Yeah, it should have like the frightened immunity though. That part's kind of weird. Okay. Regardless, I definitely like this token. So let's take you. And can I duplicate you? And then where did you go if I duplicate you? Right at the bottom. Okay. So let's... Oh dear. Let's not open the creatures tab yet. Let's take you there. Now let's open the creatures tab and put you there. Alright, so we're going to call you... Dragon Skeleton. Draconis bonus. And we're going to delete all the other stuff, basically. Gotta sneeze again, damn it. Oh my goodness, these are some monster sneezes, too. Spring! Spring is coming with all its violence. Get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of that. Dragon makes 2 bite attacks. Get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of that. Probe deeper. Get rid of sense thoughts. Yeah, honestly, I'm just gonna get rid of all their stuff. We'll just leave it pretty easy. These are supposed to be kind of minion level creatures, but just pretty high level. There we go. Dragon Skeleton. I mean, yeah, still have AC of 15, average hit points of 65. And then what we need to do is make sure that is no longer a Bone Naga, but a Dragon Skeleton. I think it's the second one is what I want. Okay, so make sure if we shift tab, yep, that opens the right one. There's a bug right now in Roll20 that's just duplicating all my tokens. That's fun. Boy, these things are very big. Are they supposed to? Oh, no, that's right, because these are actually too big. There we go, because this is a tinier map. All right, this bug is absolutely crazy. And they just come out of the walls? Is that how it works? Where am I? What the hell, did I close it already? Path of Memories, where are you? The Bone Gauntlet. Characters who draconic understand the skeletons. They hiss accusations. Skeletons don't understand or respond to anything the characters say. Until all 3 skeletons are defeated, grasping skeletal claws reach from the ground, making the entire hallway difficult terrain. That's pretty cool. I might actually work with that and turn into like the Entangle spell or something that's ongoing. That's really creepy and cool. I like that. If they can't slip through the underwater passage here. It's a very densely packed dungeon with some nasty shit in here. M6 is a fluttered tavern. Oh yeah, it is. I just now noticed that. A green slod lurks on the stage? Why? Drawn to the tunnels by the chaotic magic of the city. If it notices a character, the slod turns into we're using its hurl flame at. We already fought a green slod in this campaign. That feels a little too random, game. I was on board with all the other monsters and guards. But a fucking green slod right here. Not too far from where Demlin's hanging out. Feels a little much. And we already literally fought a green slod earlier in the campaign. It was a cool big boss fight. So I may replace you with something or nothing. Maybe enough going on here. Goes to the pass. Failed check. Doesn't speak to the dragon. The dragon's bones manifest around the skull as a complete skeleton. That animates a lesser death dragon in attack. Excellent. That's actually a big old boss fight right there, too. These death dragons are no joke. Undead. Cataclysmic breath. Bite and claw. CR10. Fuck. That's almost like an adult dragon, except it doesn't have like layer actions and stuff. Wow. That's pretty big if you decide not to talk to the... Like, it's an optional boss fight? A character speaking Draconic can try to convince the dragon they mean no harm by making a DC 18 persuasion check. On a successful check, the dragon nods and disappears. On a failed check, the dragon bones manifest into a CR10 boss fight. That is a clutch fucking roll. My goodness. That's a bold choice to make a whole boss fight hinge on a persuasion check, but could feel pretty good for the party, I guess. And then Demlin is the ancient elf, who I don't think is a lich. I think they're just like the mage stat block. Hundreds of years old. Hanging out down here, I guess, trying to protect the city. Yeah, along with King Priest of Istar, as one of the magic users responsible for raising the city into the heavens. When the city fell, Demlin learned a lesson in hubris. The dispassionate mage has been dwelling in the city's ruins, guarding the city to ensure it never takes the skies again. Pretty awesome. Almost picture like the old knight at the end of, not Raiders, the Last Crusade. It's like charged with protecting. I think, doesn't he summon a creature to fight them first? Yeah, welcome. Let's get to the assignment then. And then summons a air elemental using an elemental gem. Which probably only do that if they didn't fight the Death Dragon. Because I imagine fighting the Death Dragon is boss fight enough. Still, that's a cool fucking meat. Like, dang, this person's been around for hundreds of years and literally saw the fall of the city. Like, that'd be an important NPC. Not the first visitors my fallen city has seen in recent days. I fear my home has suddenly been remembered. Its lessons have not. We should evict all strangers from the city of lost names and ensure the city never flies again. The Red Road Mage is unwilling to take on an entire army. She encourages the encourages the characters to drive off militaristic intruders. She offers nothing but information about the city in return. So it's nice because you get that information and that friendly NPC after all this. So I think it's a well-constructed little dungeon crawl for sure. Undead Greenslod. Yeah, the Greenslod's the only one I'm really not on board with. Everything else I like. Demlin's aware of the invasion of the city. She's seen what she's seen. She shares what she's seen in the invaders' movements, focusing much of their activity on the threshold of the heavens of the city's center. And that's where the city's flying magic was controlled. That automatically puts a big pin on the player's map in terms of where they need to go. Oh, that's right. And then she can recognize the broken Dragonlance and actually encourage that they go to the Temple of Paladine to reforge the lance, which is also a big deal. And finally, she can actually perform the Test of High Sorcery to any mages in the party. So hopefully, and I can't plan on this, hopefully at least Elias, I know John doesn't join us too often, but Elias can be part of this mission where we eventually make it to Demlin. Definitely won't be this coming session. If not, we can certainly do that maybe off screen because I don't want him to miss out on that opportunity because that's a unique one. There's a little section basically the party can go through and do this whole little bit of a test that's very unique to that player, and then can actually pass their Test of High Sorcery, which is pretty unique and cool. So yeah, that's the Path of Memories. I like it for a dungeon crawl. For level, what are we at, 8? I think it's pretty solid. A lot of monsters in here, but everything kind of makes sense as this like haunted ruins of dead dragons, except for that Greenslod is just a little too random for me. We'll probably just cut that out, but everything else I think we're gonna use to great effect. And then literally once they make it past Demlin through this like door up here, that then leads to the City of Lost Names, where yeah, they exit here on the east side. The middle they'll have a pin at, and then the Temple of Paladine they'll have a pin at, and then eventually that will lead them to the Bastion of Takesis, which I think that's the one that actually rises into the air, although the threshold is where they fight. Is that where they fight Balefayon? I don't actually remember. I have to go through all that. I think it is, because I think the Bastion takes off, and that's where they have to chase down. Because initially, they're trying to stop this entire city from rising. They succeed at that, but the bad guys still manage to get just this little, like, basically building to take off on its own, and then that becomes the thing they have to stop at the end. So, pretty cool. I don't know how far we'll make it. Probably to the beginning of the Path of Memories is what I would expect. Maybe even getting through M1. But again, it just depends on how much kind of falling action we have after everything that happened and how much meeting we do with the Kalaman army, trying to figure out how to assault the Dragon army. But it's kind of laid out here and ends up being sort of a linear thing, but I'll try to work with the players and see if they come up with any, extra stuff or ideas and work with them on that. So I think that will do it for this crafting session. Thank you to everyone for joining me, and thank you to all the patrons for helping make these sessions happen. Shout out to Platinum patrons Joe, Will, Thomas, Brandon, Genocide, Roleplay Roll, Christopher, Big Nut, John, Nathan, Andrew, Stephanie, Jason, Lumpy Spuds, Board Email, LLC, On the Eating Dogs, Marcus, Hugo, Jealous Guy, Zim, Dante, How About Demnix, Chris, Robert, Neil, and Gold patrons RPG Papercraft, Speed Boy, and Yuma, Lizard Lounge, Jerome, Nathan, Scott, Rufus, Jerry, Glenn, and Mark. Thank you all very much for your support. See you guys next time.